Hello everyone, I'm Ranjitha BR. I welcome you all for the Karnataka LMS, Department of Collegiate and Technical Education. This is the program of management and the subject is organizational behavior. Today, in this session, I'm going to give an introduction to the perception. So perception. Perception is one of the most important psychological factors affecting the human behavior because perception is the way an individual experiences the situation. The concept of perception is very closely related to the personality of a person. As we know, the persons working in an organization differs from one another. It may be in terms of physical characteristics, background characteristics, that may be with regard to the training, with regard to the education, with regard to the experience, and the personality traits. One of the consequences of such differences is that people do not view the things in the same way. So perception is described as a person's view of reality. Every person perceives the world and approaches to the life very differently, and it differs from one person to another person. Reaction of the people to different situation is also different. The reason is the people behave on the basis of how and what they perceive. So perception refers to the set of processes we use to make sense of all the stimuli you encounter every second. From the glow of the computer screen in front of you, to the smell of the room, to itch on your ankle. So perception includes 5 senses: touch, sight, taste, smell, and sound. It also includes what is known as perception, a set of senses involving the ability to detect changes in body positions and movements. So perception is the sensory experience of the world. It involves both recognizing environmental stimuli and action in response to these stimuli. So close your eyes. What do you remember about the room you are in? Look at the color of the walls, the angle of the shadows, whether or not we know it. We selectively attend the different things in our environment. Close your eyes and you can imagine the room color where you live in, or any places you visited earlier times. So our brains engage in a 3-step process when presented with stimuli: selection, organization, and interpretation. For example, think of Rubin's vase, a well-known optical illusion depicted below. First, we select the item to attend to and block out most of the everything else. It's our brain's way of focusing on the task at hand to give it our attention. In this case, we have chosen to attend to the image. Then we organize the elements in our brain. Some individuals organize the dark parts of the image as the background and the light parts as the background, while others have the opposite interpretation. So some individuals see a vase because they attend to the black part of the image, while some individuals see two faces because they attend to the white part of the image. Now, once again, look into the image. If you attend to the white image, you can see the two faces. If you're attentive to the block image, you can see the vase. So most people can see both, but only one at a time, depending on the processes described above. All stages of the perception process often happen unconsciously and in less than a second. So now let's we move on to the definition given by so many authors. Behavioralist scientists have given so many beautiful definition regarding what is the perception. According to Joseph Reeds, perception includes all those processes by which an individual receives information about his environment, seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, and smelling. So, according to S.P. Robbins, perception can be defined as it is the process by which individuals organize and interpret their sensory impressions in order to give meaning to their environments. According to Uday Parikh, perception is the process of receiving, selecting, organizing, interpreting, checking, and reacting to the sensory stimuli or data. So, in simple words, we can say that perception is the act of seeing what is there to be seen. But what is seen is influenced by the perceiver, the object, and its environment. The meaning of perception emphasizes all these 3 points. So now let's move on to the importance of perception. First one, perception is very important in understanding the human behavior because every person perceives the world and approaches the life problems differently. Whatever we see or feel is not necessarily the same as it really is. It is because what we hear is not what is really said, but what we perceive as being said. For example, when we buy something, it is not because it is the best, but because we take it to the best. Thus, because of the perception, we can find out what one individual finds a job satisfying while another one may not be satisfied with it. To understand, second one, to understand present environment. If people behave on their basis of their perception, we can predict their behavior in the changed circumstances by understanding their present perception of the environment. So one person may be viewing the facts in one way, which may be different from the facts as seen by another viewer. So by perception, we can understand the present environment. The next one, to determine the need and influence of people. So with the help of the perception, the needs of various people can be determined because people perception is influenced by their needs, like the mirrors at an amusement park. They distort the world in relation to their tensions. So we can determine and need and influence of the people. Next one, by perception, understanding the perception, we can avoid error when dealing with people. Perception is very important for the manager who wants to avoid making errors when dealing with the people and events in the work setting. This problem is made more complicated by the fact that different people perceive the same situation differently. In order to deal with the subordinates effectively, the manager must understand their perceptions properly. Then only he can be and he will be avoid errors, and he can manage the people and deal with the people properly. Next, it offers more objective input. It's very important to understand their perception, that is how they perceive in different situations. People's behavior is based on their perception and more objective input by understanding the people and what is their need and motivation factors. Then he can avoid the errors. So then the more objective input he can give it to the people. So this is the way of understanding human behavior. So he can understand their manager can understand their perception, no? And he can know how the people perceive in different situations and what is reality and what is not the reality. So the world is perceived is the world that is important for understanding the human behavior. It builds character of person by the perception, how the people perceive the things and how they react to the perception. It builds, it makes them different, and it will create a character of the person. So it builds a character of person, identifiable character of the person. It helps to get along with others, to try to see things from their perspective. So it helps them to get understanding their perception, makes them and makes the manager and makes the person to get along with the others. So understanding the human behavior is very important. To understand human behavior is very important to understand their perception, how they perceive the different situations. People's behavior is based on their perception of what reality is, not on reality itself. The world as it is perceived is the world that is important for understanding the human behavior. So it is a perception, is an interpretation of sensory data. Is a perception, is a subjective process. Therefore, different people may perceive the same environment differently based on what particular aspects of the situation they chose to selective absorb, how they organize this information, and the manner in which they interpret it to obtain a hold on the situation. By this, I end this session. Thank you. Thank you, one and all.